What if you had the resources you needed for your mental health right at your fingertips? Imagine a world where our mental well-being is prioritized just like our physical health, and where we have access to the tools and support we need. That's exactly what the Make Mental Health Matter show is all about. Join Kelli Melissa Reinhardt, a true warrior for mental health, founder of Make Mental Health Matter nonprofit, author, and wellness coach. This show is your gateway to breaking down the stigma surrounding mental health. Tune in for enlightening conversations, expert insights, and empowering stories that will not only increase awareness, but also provide education about mental health. It's time to have those hard conversations, prioritize your well-being, and make your mental health matter. Your mental wellness journey starts here.
Welcome to another episode of the Make Mental Health Matter show. I am your host, Kelli Melissa Reinhardt, and again, I'm not doing a solo show. I'm so excited that finally getting some people in here to share their stories and be able to really showcase, things in life happen and we figure out what's going on. We take a look internally. Maybe we have some external things happening, and ultimately it leads us down a path that we maybe didn't ever think was going to be part of our story. And there's oftentimes people who it appears that everything is perfect and everything is going their way, but secretly or internally everything seems to be falling apart, or maybe they are doing things that you possibly couldn't even imagine that they would. And I know I start to ramble a little bit at the beginning of these shows, but I don't want to give away anything about my guests, so that's all you're gonna get. So without me rambling even further, I want to read what she wrote about herself. So I'm Hannah Dalby, founder of, and I probably pronounced that wrong, sorry, you can correct me, founder of Recovery Jungle, a former professional Muay Thai fighter, and a decade sober from drug use. For years, I looked successful on the outside while privately struggling with addiction, burnout, and disconnection. So, in this conversation, she'll share how recovery helped her rebuild her life, what she learned about the deeper patterns behind stress and self destructive behaviors, and how understanding those patterns can create lasting change and a better mental well being. So, without further ado, Hannah, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you very much. Nice intro. Well done.
Yeah. I'm like, I know I had you pronounce your last name, and then my brain was like, I think I
You
said that wrong.
did it right. You did it right.
Oh, perfect. Okay, good. So I would love for you to just share with the audience a little bit about your journey and kind of what led you to where you are today.
Yeah. So I mean, depends on how early you want to start, but I guess as a teenager, I was already I'm going to run businesses. I'm going to do all these amazing things. But I'd started drug use really really early, like 13 or 14, and it got like pretty intense. And it was like this secret thing. So I had a really good job when I was 18. By the time I was 20, I'd bought houses and investment properties, and then I started a business when I was 23. But that entire time, I was living this double life, this addict double life, doing all sorts of crazy stuff at nighttime. At about 21, I started training in Muay Thai and karate and jiu-jitsu and kudo and all of these crazy things, and was winning titles, but also had this secret life. So I ran this marketing business for 10 years. Through all of that, I got clean about 10 years ago, and no one knew about that either. So it was just like I just went through that quietly by myself, and then, rebranded my business, kept that going, ended up becoming a professional Thai fighter. And then about 5 years ago, I started the business that I have now. The original iteration was just to have cryotherapy and compression and sauna to, I was an athlete. I wanted to feel good all of the time. And all of this stuff was just this big bypass. It was like, how can I avoid myself in any way possible? So drug use, fighting, running businesses, working too hard, even the recovery stuff I started using as this escape. Like, I can just get in cold twice a day and I can have dopamine and endorphins and still not feel anything that's going on underneath. So about 3 years ago, maybe 4 years ago, I gave up fighting and went on this really, really deep journey. I'd already been on this emotional processing kind of journey, seeing psychotherapists, doing plant medicine. At some stage, I realized that all of this stuff, even though I had a business doing it, was a surface level and was still being a part of the problem. And so we ended up integrating, really deep somatic emotional processing into the business and started watching what happened with our clients. And originally we did it around weight loss and women's health. And I watched addicts get clean without me trying them, like doing anything about it. I never mentioned it, and they would just get clean. Relationships started getting better. People would quit their shit jobs and go start businesses. So what was happening is this full human integration. And that's been the really, really big path the last 3 years, is like building that and creating that process to now where we're deeply focused on people with their relationship issues, burnout, and leadership stuff by going deep into the internal stuff that's happening, the old patterns, the old wounding. And that's where we can actually create lasting change and identity shifts that keep people enjoying everything that they're doing.
Yeah, I mean, I was like, there's so many thoughts going through my brain right now, which normally there is, but um, I, so you literally just kind of went through all of this, nobody really knew, and then you came out clean and sober, and then shifted gears. And so in my brain, I'm thinking like, what kind of happened, which I'm sure you've discovered, like where maybe it started or where it came from potentially.
Yeah.
But I think you probably you could not have done that, like going deep down inside and like genuinely putting all that somatic healing into what you do now. So um, I'm curious with because Muay Thai, I would assume like it gives you this adrenaline burst, right? And then you're also substance on top of that. So like your body was probably like so overwhelmed with so much going through it. And then as you moved into the journey of becoming clean and sober, was I'm my brain's like that had to have been a shock to your body potentially.
Yes. I think there's some parts to this where it's like I have very like high level ADHD. I'm a very high functioning autism. Like there's all this stuff kind of going on in my brain, so I need that much stimulation, and I just had to go to a different place, and I needed that much stimulation, and also there was so much going on underneath. So yes, a little bit of a shock to a system, but I just put it somewhere else. So although I thought that I had gotten clean and I was doing so well, it was a lie, because I gave it up and then I went, full blown into my marketing company, and I was waking up at 2 o'clock in the morning and going to bed at 7 o'clock at night. And just like that entire day was running this business, and I built it, from a moment. I was like maybe 3 months clean, and I was like, all right, let's get this thing back on the road. And, in three months after that, I had, was making $25,000 a month, was hiring all of these staff. Like I just put it into something else. And then when I went back training again, like the business dropped back down, but I was now training 5 hours a day. So it was like, I hadn't changed that level of stimulation. I hadn't changed that level of escape. I just put it somewhere else that wasn't causing so much damage, I guess.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's like a shift of transferred into something different, which oftentimes, as I'm sure you're aware too, is you see a lot of that is that we maybe have these traumas, childhood traumas, which lead us into whether it's risky behaviors or substance use or whatever that might be, right? The patterns that you were talking about earlier. And then also, then we just shift it, like, because it's not where we want to be anymore, then we shift it into something else. And then you probably, which led to burnout and all the things that you help with now. And I think it's really cool that you started noticing these as you started helping more and more people because you actually got to the root cause, which is definitely something that I love that people do.
Yeah. Yes, and so I deeply understand all of the root causes because it's something that I work on. You know, as a facilitator of this work, I make sure I do my own work regularly so that my nervous system is regulated. So I absolutely understand every little minor bit of what's happened here. So, yeah.
Yeah, no, I think that's awesome. I know. So I'm curious, I mean, through what you do now, what are some of, I mean, if you could, well, it's kind of hard because we're all human and we all have different experiences, but what are some things that you have become aware of that might be like patterns that people get into that you're able to help shift them out of?
Um, well, there's a list. So for women specifically, right? Like, so what generally happens now when I'm working with people is they come in and we just talk about relationships first, because relationships is where it will hurt the most, these patterns. So, like in my journey, I managed to avoid all of that by just staying out of relationships. Like, because in my early 20s, they were violent and very, very toxic. So I just stayed out of them completely. And so I felt like I was fine. I was like, what do you mean? I don't have any problems left. Like, here I am being a champion and running this business and doing all these things. But I disconnected myself from relationships completely. So it couldn't show up. And so that's one way that it can show up, is like you don't go near relationships. You don't have depth because you're too scared of it. The nervous system is like, no, thank you. Inside of relationships is where it will absolutely start to show up, and it might be in work relationships, but normally that closest home relationship is where it will really start to have things like, what's happening inside of conflict? Are you shutting down? Can you actually receive love? Can you actually appreciate your partner? Which will come from, can I actually receive love? Are you over functioning and overdoing everything all of the time? So even though I had put down crazy ass 5 hours of training and running a business and all of this stuff, inside, as soon as I got into a healthy relationship, the over functioning like turned right back on again. And it's like, I can't let go of the grip. I can't let go and surrender and let you take care of me because it's just too scary. I have to be in control all of the time, which I thought I'd put down and hadn't even come close to it. And then we have these patterns of, like reactivity that will come in, and the reactivity that shows up in relationships, you actually start to see happen in boardrooms and in running teams and stuff like that. So, man can't stay regulated and present with himself because he doesn't want to feel what's going on under here. He can't stay regulated and present with his partner. What do you think is going to happen when his team does something that he doesn't like, or someone in the boardroom challenges his authority? The same patterns start playing out, and it affects how the business runs, how the life runs, how the relationship runs, how you raise your children, how you treat yourself, and not even being able to hear what's happening inside of your body. And I think all of it really comes down to what you've attached your identity to get some kind of need met. So we can do all of these amazing things in our lives. We can start businesses, we can have these amazing jobs, we can become athletes, we can, whatever it is, it's our version of doing something amazing. And what's the shadowed need inside of that you have attached your identity to? I must do this so I can be loved, supported, have connection, these like base needs that are actually going on. And if we can detangle our identity and getting our needs met from all the things that we do, and start to realize and even acknowledge that we have desires to be loved, to be chosen, to be needed, to be heard, to be seen as exactly who we are, which I think people, like a very, very large percentage of people, haven't even got there yet.
Yeah, I know a lot of people are like, I just want to be seen and understood, and I just want, that love, but it doesn't change unless you change yourself. And I would imagine that, well, I know we hear about it pretty often with athletes, and um, especially I would say in the like fighting, Muay Thai, boxing, UFC space, that there might be, I don't know, more substance use in that space. I don't know. That was just a thought that popped into my head.
Well, so I think this is kind of what's like. There's a reason. There's a little bit of something going on in someone's system for them to make a conscious choice to go and punch people in the face and get hit. As a living, right? As something that you're choosing to do for fun. And there's multiple parts of that. Like for me, there was I want to be seen. I love the spotlight. I love being the center of attention. Like all of these things, were desires, like positive desires that I was allowed to go and have met. And also there was a deep amount of rage that I needed to get out. I needed to prove to dad like 10 different things all at the same time. I didn't want to be anything like my mother, so it was the absolute opposite of how she operates. Quiet little mouse, all right, watch me be this loud, whatever. And there is so much escapism inside of it, because like it almost like it's this tight line of there is so much escapism in it, because you don't have to be with yourself, because you're endlessly training endorphins, dopamine, and also to become a really, really good fighter or a good athlete, there is a level of presence that you actually need. And so there's a switch here where I think like if you've learned how to do it for the joy of it, and then you can actually become present with yourself, you become better at it, because now you're actually being able to be present with what's here. I used to have to go and like do some kind of meditation before I went out and get all the parts of myself that didn't even want to be there and put them in a bedroom. And so only the parts that really wanted to fight would actually show up. Otherwise, I've got this tension, these like conflicted parts that are kind of in the ring fighting, and one of them doesn't even want to be there. And that shows up in micro moments and makes me not do very well. And there's lots and lots of fighters that you hear that it saved them. It saved them from the shitty behaviors they were doing. Because it feels the same. It's the same kind of adrenaline.
Yeah, yeah. That makes so much sense, and the I'm like, it does. It takes a very special person, right? That wants to go beat up people and get beat up, right?
Yeah.
And I would imagine that you do have to really disconnect yourself from your body so that you're not feeling the pain, because you still have to get back up and fight, or you still have to keep going on whether you want or don't want to be there. So I've actually never thought of it that way, and that it's so fascinating to think about. You chose to become a fighter, but then there's still this part of you that's like, what am I doing? Why am I here? Why am I even in this ring? So we're going to go to our quick first sponsored break, but once we get back, we'll chat a little bit more, because I have a couple other questions that are bubbling up in my head. So we'll be right back after this.
What if you could transform your mental health journey with just one question? Have you ever wondered what it would be like to prioritize your mental well-being like never before? Well, now's your chance. Introducing Make Mental Health Matter, the show that's changing the conversation about mental wellness. Join us every Monday on Dream Vision 7 Radio Network at 7 a.m. and 7 p.m. Eastern Time as we delve into insightful discussions, expert advice, and inspiring stories. Hosted by Kelli Melissa Reinhardt, a warrior for mental health. This show is your guide to breaking down the stigma surrounding mental health and discovering valuable resources to enhance your well-being. So, are you ready to take charge of your mental health journey? Tune in and let's make mental health matter together.
And like that, we're back. If you happen to be just joining the Make Mental Health Matter show, thank you so much for tuning in, whether you're watching or listening. Hannah and I are chatting about really her experience through substance use and Muay Thai fighting and lots of different layers and what she does now and how she helps people really through the healing journey and so much more. Um, and I know before we went to the break, we were talking about being a fighter, being an athlete. It really takes a certain person that wants to step into those rings. And then also, you talked about how when you get to that like higher level, right, you become the like best of the best. And you have these different parts I just lost I don't know what happened. But when you have these parts of yourself that want to be there and then parts of yourself that don't want to be there. So I'm curious, and when because you that you ultimately moved through the substance use and then it kind of transferred into another business where you felt a lot of burnout and all of these things, and what you realized was it was you. It's not like, yeah, you just had to move with and figure that out more. So I'm gonna go back to you and maybe you can share some more experiences around that.
Around actually getting clean.
Yeah, that would be awesome.
Yeah. So I think I was preparing myself leading up to it. Like I wasn't an idiot by any means. Um, and it was what was really going on is I had no connection. I didn't know. I mean, I had a boyfriend that died in a car accident when I was 18. No one knew how to like help me process that grief. No one, like my parents didn't know what to do with me. I had no one around to go like, hey, yeah, you're allowed to let this out. Like, what do you actually need? I was kind of already on my own in the world. And when if I really look back at it now and the patterns that I know that were there, like this big core wound of not being chosen. My parents got divorced, they got new partners, they chose, the partners and the new things that were going on, and I was kind of left on my own. And I was high functioning. I was a high functioning kid, so it was kind of like she'll be fine. And so there was this like core wound of not being chosen, which was like an abandonment wound. My boyfriend died in a car accident. Now I'm abandoned again. So there was like this deep lack of connection, and that's how I was kind of avoiding that feeling and of like shoving down all of the grief that I had experienced because I didn't know what to do with it. No one told me what to do with it. There was very likely a bit of self-medicating going on because I was super intelligent kid. Skipped grades, was supposed to go to international baccalaureate and go to London University, and but when I was 15, but I was like, I don't know how to do this in this world. There is no connection for me to be that human being, so I'll just shove that down, go start rave businesses, whatever I was doing, but very, very high functioning. And so like in my 20s, I had investment properties. I was like planning this gigantic life. I'd started this business already. And I was, multiple businesses running at the same time, but I still wanted connection. So I was getting it in a shadowed way, which meant terrible boyfriends, domestic violence that I would stay inside of. And it nearly got me killed. Like there was lots and lots of stuff going on, and it nearly got me killed, shot at with a gun. And I was like, okay, this needs to stop now. And I met a guy that was very similar to me, had businesses and owned houses, and we're kind of like, why are we in this world? So it was just some kind of connection that I could hang on to make the decision and feel like I would be safe inside of letting this go. So it was just me and him that knew about it. I kind of pulled everything down for a little while, said nothing about it. I ended up going back to my hometown for a little while, like my home state, but still no one could take me. So my dad couldn't have me, my mum couldn't have me, my ex-boyfriend's mum, like the one that died, she couldn't have me. So I was like back on my own again. And it was like this, okay, you have to do this on your own. And I guess that was a little bit of a fire. I ended up having a car accident and really hurting my knee. And it was just this fire of like, okay, no one really is going to support me in this. I will do this on my own, like in spite of all of you. Screw you all. I will get this done. And so it was like that just drive of I will do it despite all of you. So it was an anger and a resentment and all of this like fire that I built inside of me that had like drove me into it. But leading up to all of that, I had a massage therapist that had taken me through an NLP process one time and had triggered, oh, you have trauma around your boyfriend dying. So that had kind of been looping around. When I had moved back, I was looking for someone to help me stretch. I had an injury from the car accident, and she was like, well, I can't help you do that, but I can teach you breath work. And so she started teaching me Joe Dispenza's breath work, and then ended up putting me inside of her version of therapy. So I had all of these tools. I mean, it's really funny actually, because even before, just towards the end of me making this decision, I started learning about all of this stuff. I was watching when you first start on this journey, you read the memes about, gratitude or whatever. I'm like, there's something to this. I started learning meditation. So I would, smoke my crack pipe and then sit there and meditate. Like I was bringing all the tools in, so that when I made the decision, I had something to help me process. I had decided that I would start journaling. So I journaled every day for 4 years straight from the day that I got clean. I have those journals sitting somewhere, which will be very interesting one day. So I kind of had some kind of internal support that I built myself. And this process is actually what I tell people now is like, don't just take away the thing that is keeping you safe. Like, build yourself enough safety first, so when you take it away, you're okay. So I'd started doing some of the work before I actually put the drug down. And when I put the drug down, it was like, yes, I was tired. I needed a lot of sleep. There was a lot of emotions that were coming up. And I just, took myself away from all of the people that were judging those emotions and just let myself do it. And I guess it was like I just put it into something else. It was like, I know I can't do it anymore. I will die otherwise. I will just put this into something else. And, sometimes it's not necessarily a good thing, but it can be a nice start. Like if that's the level that it's at, if it's serious drug use, like sure, start a business, be an athlete. Like, yes, you're still going to have to do this work. Like, understand that it's not a substitute forever. But it can help you get to a stable place where you can start digging underneath, which was a 10-year journey for me.
Wow. And so you didn't go into like a facility or do treatment. It was just kind of a shifting, and you made the choice to get clean.
Yeah, and I think there was some stuff that I understood as an athlete, like, okay, I'm going to need a lot of good food. I'm going to need support. I'm going to need to exercise. Like, I fundamentally understood that. I was an intelligent woman, you know what I mean? Like, and I'd read all of this stuff beforehand, so I'd kind of equipped myself with tools before I made the decision. And I remember in that first week, like, I'm gonna have to go for a run, and I was going for a run every night to build those endorphins. Like, I knew fundamentally that I'm gonna have to take care of myself inside of this and provide myself enough stuff, because it was more scary to tell anyone.
Yeah.
Because that would
Yeah,
have
that
taken my identity and what people thought of me. So I had to find a way on my own.
Yeah, and you've talked a lot about like the disconnect, right? And you really just wanted connection, but now you're in this spot where you're having to do it all by yourself because you don't feel like anybody's going to be there to support you, but you know enough about being able to add all these skills in, and wow.
Yeah, I mean, I had little bits of connection. Like a good friend of mine, like took me in. We lived in the middle of nowhere for like 3 months, until I crashed. I had the massive car accident, and then I just found my own little place. And I remember thinking like, I need a place next to waterfalls so I can go to nature every day, and my dogs need to be able to be inside, and I need to have these certain things. And if I don't have it, I'm going back to Queensland. And I found it, and so I was just in this little place, and I literally spent 2 hours in the waterfalls every day. Which is probably why the business did well, is because I was able to connect back with myself, connect back with nature, actually listen to myself, hear myself. And that's, it's interesting that I figured that out then. And then, during the fight career, threw that away again. And now it's like, now the entire practice that we are creating for people is clearing out enough stuff so that you can come back present with yourself, because we have all the answers within us. We know what we want, desire, need. It's there. There's just a lot of stuff sitting on top of it.
Yeah. So I do have another question that's bubbling up, but we have to go to our quick last sponsor break. And once we get back, I'll ask that question. So we'll be right back after this.
Have you ever felt completely alone?
Like your life doesn't matter.
One person dies due to suicide every 40 seconds.
You are not alone. Call the National Suicide Lifeline at 988.
Hope and recovery is possible.
1 in 8 people globally live with a mental disorder.
That's why empowering minds saves lives.
We need your help.
With only $19 a month, you help us save lives through mental health and suicide prevention education.
Scan the QR code or go to makementalhealthmatter.org to sign up as a warrior for mental health today.
Like that, we're back again. If you happen to be just tuning into the Make Mental Health Matter show, make sure you go back and watch the whole beginning because you missed a bunch. So Hannah, you were talking about how so through recovery, and you were in the space that you didn't really have the support that you needed, and also you just made a decision. And I have actually I've had a couple guests on my show that have said they just made the decision and they decided it was either you're going to die and this is how it's going to be, or I'm going to make a change. I thought, like you were saying, I mean, very smart in like, I need to replace the energy that I'm getting from the drugs. And you found that in runs and charging back into nature and coming back to yourself. Also knowing that you wanted to change your lifestyle, right? So I'm curious, and you again have talked about like you just really wanted the connection piece, and you felt very disconnected for such a long time in your life. So as you were going back into nature, is that like kind of what started bringing back in those connections?
Look, I don't think I did connection well until the last 2 or 3 years. So this we're like at probably 11 years later now. I guess it brought connection back to myself. So what I became very, very good at is connecting to myself and listening to myself. And which became a problem. It became a problem in like the next part of my life because the ways I would go and try and find connection was through gyms. Like I will belong in this gym, and they will, surrogate father, trainer, and surrogate family. Like here is where I belong, but it was never at a depth of connection. So I could connect to myself and know what I needed and what I wanted, and that would create friction in these relationships because it was not about what Hannah wants. It was about do as you're told, and so there was always this friction around that. And there was lots of myself that I hadn't yet connected to. So I started to listen, and some of that was still absolutely shadowed voices. Because there was still all of this patterning around need to prove dad wrong, need to not be like mom, need to make sure I'm winning. If I'm not winning, then I'm nothing. So there was all of this stuff that was still operating. Like my identity was tied to being a business owner, being a property owner, being an athlete. So I lost my properties when I got clean. Like in that process of all the chaos that was happening, I had them repossessed. I literally like built everything up, lost everything, burnt to the ground. You have to start again. So that was the first experience I had of a loss of identity, completely taking all of that away and rebuilding it. It was like everything was still attached to all of this. And I don't think it's really, really recent that I have untangled my identity from the things that I do. And that's allowed me to just receive the connection and the love and the support from the people around me, and then make conscious choice to do the things I'm doing because of purpose and joy and play.
Yeah. I mean, and I feel like that's one of the things for a lot of humans, right? Is like even those connections that we have, sometimes it's just very surface level, like you were talking about, right? It's like I'm part of this group, therefore that's part of my identity. And then you really have to like figure out like being able to receive, which is definitely for me, right? Like I have challenged. I think the funny part about that is being the founder of a mental health and suicide aware. We have to get good at receiving. And so it's always been one of those things that I've had challenges with too. But yeah, it's definitely, I mean, it's not, connection is what we need as humans, right? Like we thrive on connection and being connected to people. But like you said, part of our identity becomes sometimes materialistic and or part of a group, and then we have to figure out like who are we, what are we really trying to do and accomplish in this life. So I think it's cool that you've made these like shifts throughout life. And the other question that kept popping into my head is so why now are you wanting to share your story? Because I know that it was something that you didn't want to tell anybody. So why is now a time that you're really sharing your story?
So sharing the story happened, I guess, two 2.5 years ago, something like that. I woke up in the middle of the night one night at 1 o'clock in the morning and like download of, you have to start a podcast. And so I sat there and I wrote down, okay, these are the people I must interview for the first 12 episodes. These are the questions I'm going to ask them. And I was like, okay. And then I went to sleep and then I did nothing about it for a year because I was like, I have to put that on the internet. I have to tell my story. My parents are going to know. I need to say this out loud. And then I had all of this, like, it needs to be perfect. And I want it. So all of this, like, I just had it sitting there like, I know I need to do it. A friend of mine, you know, I was telling him about this and he's like, oh, I've got this friend. He's down the road. He's got a podcast studio. So it just kind of opened up where I could have this really professional setup. But I still knew I had to tell my parents about what was going on before I put it on the internet. And it was very, very interesting because I had thyroid issues for all of my life. And I ended up flying down to Adelaide and sitting my parents in a hotel room, like neutral ground, and sat there for an hour and said, I've got something, I'm going to start a podcast. It's going to be on the internet. Here's the story of my life that you have no idea about. And my dad cried. My mum sat there in silence and she ended up turning around and saying to me, well, you've just told me my life story. I just didn't tell anyone about it. And I was like, well, thanks, Ma. And then the next day I went and recorded my first episode in a studio down there. And my thyroid issue disappeared within a couple of months. My gut issues disappeared within a couple of months. So like this holding on to my truth was actually making me sick. And so experiencing that, it's like, this has to come out. Expression is the most important thing. And with all the work that I do with people now, everything is about this expression of truth. And connection comes from being seen and heard as exactly who you are. Like the connection becomes a little irrelevant if it's not really everything that's inside of you, because now you're, you know, you've got a safety mechanism there of like, well, they don't really know who I am, so they can't really see me, so I'm safe, but I'm not really connected because they can't see me and love me for exactly who I am. And the moment that you get to let all of that out and still be accepted, loved, seen, understood, that's now you really have connection. Now you're safe in the world to be who you are, which is, at the end of the day, as we start untangling all of this stuff, it's what everyone wants.
Yeah, I've also heard that a lot of times too, is like, I mean, well, and I know the body, like it holds all of these things and then it manifests physical symptoms, which I think we're talking more about because people are struggling. I mean, like body pain and just, I mean, really bad, like cancer and the amount of cancer that we have in the world, right? And it's like, can we all just start talking about the things that we don't want to talk about? Because I can almost guarantee that there's probably some of that just living in your body, which is ultimately manifesting into these physical symptoms.
Every single time. So much of the work I do is getting rid of people's physical symptoms by doing this emotion, like fibromyalgia. I need to be suffering in order to be seen, loved, heard, supported, whatever. We are able to undo someone's identity, like untangle that identity around I need to be suffering, and they can actually be winning and have all of those things. Fibromyalgia disappears. So it's all of the body.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many people that we support also that I'm like, if we could just get to that like underside, right? And that's what I love about somatic um, work that people do now. And so those people that don't really understand somatic, how would you explain like what you do?
Okay, so if you've been to therapy or counseling, right, you talk about your problems, head, story, 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 and you've figured out a way to stay disconnected from what's happening down here. When we talk about somatic, it's like taking you out of your logical, conscious mind, and what does that actually feel like? So, a husband says something that triggers you. Normally, the response is, well, screw you. And it's like story, story, story. He did this, he said that. Okay, so taking that out of your head, what's happening in your body. And then when we can start to teach, okay, well, my stomach is tight. That's somatic. My heart hurts. I have anxiety. It feels tightness in my chest. That's somatic. I'm getting a pain in my lower back. That's somatic. And we deal with everything from that place. And what actually needs to be expressed from here, and when have you felt that before? And we can track it back to when the first time it appeared, and then we get the pattern. So, okay, so stomach, something in the stomach. Oh, okay, well I felt that this time when in this other relationship, when this happened. And over time, it'll track back to, feels like when I was 3 and dad said this. And we start to be able to get, the expression to happen from these earlier moments and realize what you needed, what you actually needed in that time, which will always translate to the thing that you're really desiring now. And we do that process until there is no charge in the body. So husband says whatever, and you have neutral experience. Or you can feel something and be present with it and speak from it rather than from story.
Wow. Yeah, it's it like sounds so much easier than it actually is, but it's definitely actually my guest last week we were chatting about how your body, right? There's so many things inside your body. She talked more about food and the food that we put into our body and how that's helpful for everything. But I also am shifting into this conversation of we also have to listen to our bodies and where is the pain and how do we figure out what it's trying to tell us, because sometimes it's hard to tap into that. And so I'm not saying that it's an easy process, but it's definitely a process that we need to, I feel like, as humans, do more than what we have been in the past.
I agree, and I also think that we need support inside of it. Like we can co-regulate with it. This process works that we do because we can co-regulate with the other person. I rock up with a very regulated nervous system. Their nervous system can co-regulate with me, which is connection, which is all of the thing we're looking for. And because they're now in some kind of co-regulation, it's safe for them to access it. On your own, it feels like, I don't want to do it, right? And so we need that. And eventually inside of relationships and friendships, when everyone kind of understands this and does this work, is like, can we truly hold space for each other and be able to co-regulate and really hear each other and provide space for this? Because there's no reason that people need to be coming to see people like me every week for the rest of their lives. It's like, yes, we can do some of the really hard cleanup. And then can we teach humans to actually hold space for each other?
Yeah. I love that. I mean, and it's something I had to learn myself too, right? Like, I actually do neurolinguistic programming also as a coach, and that was where I first started learning about not only myself but other people and how to hold space for myself and then also hold space for others. And I think the cool part about it really is that so my brain was like, I thought about a baby when you lay a baby on your chest, right? Like, or if you are in the same room with somebody and maybe they're breathing really heavy or really hard or fast. And if you slow down your breathing, they tend to regulate to your body, which is something that we also train. But it works. And that's the cool part, is that it actually works. But every time I think about that, I always think about the baby that's like laying on you and their body regulates to your body, which just shows that as humans, that is how we can connect to people. So I love that you look at it in that space too.
We'll take that example, right? And this is why there is so many issues that we may not even understand. Little baby that is regulating to the mother, and the mother's nervous system is fried and she's in a complete state of unsafety, even though she may not realize it. You've got you've been birthed from this nervous system. You have inherited that nervous system. An example of this is like literally these last few weeks, I have finally hit the stuff around my mother, who's the most unsafe, terrified, anxious person in the world. And so there is a fundamental unsafety that has been running in my nervous system my entire life without any story around it. I just inherited her nervous system because that's what I learned to regulate with. And so, you know, when we talk about safety, like we can create safe relationships, we can create, you know, all of this co-regulation, but you need to build fundamental safety in your nervous system first, which is often undoing the baseline pattern that was created from birth.
Oh yeah. Well, and I love now they're really talking about like intergen or not like generational trauma, which like is what you're saying, is that it might not even have been our parents. It might have been their parents, right? And it can go so much farther than we ever thought like we could ever imagine. And so it's fascinating.
Yeah, and you think about even weight loss, right? Like talking about food and stuff like that. Like a nervous, like a body that is sitting in fundamental unsafety because of their mother or grandmother, or like it's been passed down this far, is going to have shots of cortisol all day long from the tiniest little things, because the world is unsafe because there is no fundamental safety. Shots of cortisol all day long equals stomach fat, you know? And so it's like, okay, so is like, yes, food is so important. And yes, we want to eat all these amazing things. And this is why diet sometimes just won't work for someone over and over and over again, because there's just so much unsafety in the system. It's like all of this is just a protection mechanism.
Yeah, and that makes, I mean, I have heard that before, but it's been a long time since I heard that. And it makes complete sense. And so I'm curious, and we're sort of almost coming to the end, not fully, but I want to make sure that you are also able to share like how, when somebody comes to you, and I love one thing is that you're continually doing the work yourself too, because like you said at the very beginning, is that it is something that you're not just working with people, like you're actually doing the work yourself, which I think makes you a stronger human to be able to help other humans. But you're also noticing patterns around yourself, and then noticing how you are discovering other patterns with other people and how it can shift and change their life too. And so when somebody is working with you, like what does that look like? Like how does it all work?
Yeah, so we run like minimum of 3-month programs on purpose, right? So like we're not getting an identity shift in a couple of sessions. We're not even doing it in 6 weeks. And every single time through this process, I watch people, like we start to like undo some of the really, really big stuff at the start. The nervous system starts to regulate. And then as we move towards the end, it's like this new identity tries to start coming out. And then there's like this death of the old identity and almost this grief process as this new identity comes to life and gets to stand strong. So we work with people one-on-one, like it's, and I have 4 facilitators on my team, so there's a lot of men on my team, very, very specifically to be able to do men's work with men, but also so that towards the end, working with women, they get to experience what safe masculine energy feels like, which is quite incredible at what it will do to a woman's body that's had a lot of trauma around men. Any abuse or anything like that, you actually see their body detox the trauma from having these experiences. So there's one-on-one sessions with one of us every single week. We run group sessions, we support them with food, we support them with strength training. So it's like, let's build an entire whole human. And then it's very, very specific to what that individual's issues or desires are. We're trying to build a company. We're like dealing with all of this stuff around that. We've got relationship issues, we've got health issues. It's very, very personalized to what that specific person needs. If we've got couples that come in that will do it together, and then we'll start running couple sessions. So we'll do this exact process with 2 people sitting in the room. And it's like for the first time, they actually get to speak from what's happening in their heart or in their solar plex or in their stomach and witness each other process this stuff, which almost every time is like, that's the first time I've ever really felt heard by them. And it's the biggest reset in a relationship that I've ever seen in my life, every single time.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, if you have a couple though, and one of them's like, no, I don't want to do this, and the other one's like, we're doing this. I'm sure you've had that. Have you ever had that happen before, I guess?
Yeah, and I think, if in a relationship, if one person is dedicated to shifting themselves and they get that job done, the other partner will ultimately see that shift and start to recognize that they are now the problem inside of the relationship. Because if someone else starts rocking up regulated, it's like, oh, okay, I'm now the only one being dysregulated. Because when there's 2 people dysregulated, you just fire at each other. And there's 2 nervous systems like, protector parts, with swords out. If one person becomes regulated and starts speaking honestly, like that can soften the other person very, very deeply. And these protector parts start to come down a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. I mean, I know I started doing personal development, I mean, years and years and years ago, but I ultimately, until I really started getting into NLP, I didn't really fully understand why I was doing what I was doing. But I have even noticed in conversations with others, not necessarily my partner, but with others, that my system feels much more regulated, and I don't get those like red, like that's what I used to say is I'd go 0 to red in 2.5 seconds, but I don't feel that as much anymore because I know how to regulate my system, and it has shown through talking to others that it's been helpful for them. So I love that it's still like you can start the work and people around you will probably be like, what's going on? How can I do that? Which is awesome.
The other thing that happens is that trigger loop will disappear. So I did like years of like similar work, and the biggest war partner in my life has been my dad. We had been at war for 30 years. And as I started undoing all of this stuff in me, that the loop was just not there anymore. And so my like slight energetic reaction to things was different. And so then he behaved differently. And that happens all the time, right? So like another example, as like a leader of a business, I used to have this pattern of rescuing women on my team. And they would go into victim, this is terrible, and then I would rescue it. And when I undid that within myself and just like held my boundaries and was like, okay, well, you can feel like that, that's fine. Their entire patterns just shifted, and they were, oh, okay, no worries. And it's like, it will shift anyway. The whole world around you will start to shift because you're not playing it out anymore.
Yeah, that makes so much sense. And I know you're in Australia. Do you work outside of Australia?
Yeah, we work mostly New Zealand and the US. Outside of Australia, we have capacity for everywhere. I'm up at 3 o'clock in the morning. We have a decent team. So yeah.
And I would love for you to just share, because we are right at the end. Share if anybody wants to work with you, where can they find you?
thejungle.net.au.
Awesome. So I will drop that in the show notes. And then any final thoughts that you want to share?
if there is a repeating pattern in your life and it feels like everyone is against you, look at yourself.
Yeah, I love that. Well, this was such an incredible conversation. Thank you so much for sharing your story with the audience, and then also just sharing how you've been able to move through yours, which ultimately led you to this amazing space that you are now helping others. So thank you so much for sharing.
Thank you so much. It's been amazing.
Yeah. All right, y'all. That was another amazing episode. So many good nuggets. This is why I love to have guests on, because one, I always learn from my guests, but then there's things that you don't think about that you may just be going through life and you're like, not really realizing what might be going on or what you can shift or how you can control your body, right? And how you can feel into and figure out, like, maybe you're in pain, or maybe you're struggling with substance use, or maybe you're living the secret life, or whatever it might be, right? There are ways to start shifting those things, and there are amazing humans that are there to help you do that. You don't have to go through it alone. So I hope you got some really great nuggets from today. No matter what you do, make sure you come back next week. I go live every single Monday at 5 a.m. or 5 p.m. on Dream Vision 7 Radio, or you can watch on E360 TV at 5 p.m. That's all Mountain Denver time. No matter what, I will see you next week. Bye, y'all.
Thank you for joining today for the Make Mental Health Matter show. We hope you found today's episode insightful and empowering. Remember, your mental health journey doesn't end here. For more resources, support, and information, visit us online at makementalhealthmatter.org. You won't forget to subscribe to our show or follow us on social media to stay connected and continue the conversation, will you? That's right. Together, let's make mental health matter. Until next time, take care of yourselves and each other.